Good morning. How the devil are you? Good to see you here. Today we're going to be talking about the principles of kite surfing fitness. You know, it's very important to, there's this old kind of way of looking at this. You give a man a fish, you teach him, you keep him happy for a day. You teach a man to fish, you keep him happy for the rest of his life. And that's what I want to do here this morning, is teach you the principles. Workouts and all these kind of things you can find online are great, but what's even better is if you understand how fitness, especially kite surfing fitness, works, excuse me, so you can go and build your own workouts specifically for you. Because again, we're all biomechanically different, and what works for you and what you need in a particular moment will be very different to what the next person needs. So that's what we're going to cover this morning. So hi, my name's Sam. If this is your first time on the channel, here what we're all about in Tantrum is giving you the tools you need to improve your kite surfing when you are off the water. So if you want to kind of supercharge your kite surfing, even if you don't get out that much, then you're in the right place. And all you got to do, hit the subscribe button below, click the bell so you receive notifications whenever I release a new video. Okay, so let's dive in to the meat of what we're going to be talking about this morning. As I say, we're looking to give you the principles of fitness. And the way this works, guys, if you've got questions, stick them in the chat as usual. This is live, so stick them in the chat. I'll answer them as we go. If I don't answer them straight away, it's because I'm flicking back and forth between screens here. So I might not see it straight away, but give it a chance and I will get there eventually. If I don't, just keep sticking in until I actually read it, because it's quite easy to miss these things as well. So, as I say, what we want to give you is the fundamentals of kite surfing fitness, so that you can go away and any workout you do, it's great. You can look at our workouts, the workouts we do. We've got a free workout on our website. I think the link is in the description below. Go and check that out. But it means that when you're doing that, you understand, or any other workout for that matter, you understand the principles that have gone into building that workout. So you can understand what that workout is trying to achieve. And you can say, well, is this what I need at this moment, or do I need something different? So the four areas that I tend to focus on when I look at someone, someone comes around, I want to get fit for kite surfing. Now there's about 11 different kind of fundamental areas of fitness. The four that I tend to focus on for kite surfing initially, straight away: speed, strength, endurance, both muscular and cardiovascular, and range of motion or flexibility. But I also include in that kind of muscle density. Now, a lot of people say, okay, what about power? Power is important for kite surfing. Yeah, it is, but power is a combination of speed and strength. So you can see they're the four I focus on, and then you can break those down into kind of what I would call subcategories, where you've got things like power, agility, reflexes, things like this, which are all important, but tend to be broken down as a part of it. I would say they're the first four that we're going to focus on. Now, before we begin this, it's important to realize that no one actually knows what type of fitness is required for kite surfing. The studies have just never been done. We don't actually know if kite surfing is an endurance sport, a power sport, whatever. We just don't know. We can hazard a guess, but no actual studies have ever been done. I'm sure with kite surfing now being in the Olympics, these things will start to get done. But just to give you an idea, the study to determine this in climbing, which is a much older sport than kite surfing, was only done about 2-3 years ago. So we're still way behind a lot of other sports in kind of specific kite surf fitness. Again, the other reason is it's very difficult to test kite surf because you're on the water, so this apparatus has to be waterproof as well as everything else. So the scientists just haven't really got around to it. So this is quite a new and open field at the moment, where it's very open to experimentation and just seeing what's going on. So the other thing to mention before we start is that fitness in general is actually very easy for most people. The reason that fitness gets so confused, especially on the internet, is that a lot of workouts are aimed at elite athletes. Now I'll tell you a story. There was a guy who came to me, big overweight guy, who just wanted to get fit, but who kept telling me, look, I really want to get fit, but I need the perfect workout. I need to be doing this and this. And he'd read so many books and he knew loads about it. He knew more than I did, to be fair. He was a real expert on this. But he'd got caught up in the detail. And what he'd done is he'd been reading all these books on kind of peak performance and elite athletes and training for this and Michael Jordan, this, that, and the other. And he understood it to the wire. But the problem was, it's like, okay, that's great. All that information, all that knowledge is amazing if you're going to be Michael Jordan, because he needs his workouts tweaked to the absolute 1%. What you need is just someone to stand behind you and scream, run! Or lift it! It's really, really simple. When you're starting out in exercise, you just need to do it. You just need to dive in and do anything, really, because it's fairly simple. Movement is the key, and humans have been moving for billions or millions of years, so we know exactly what to do in this situation. The confusion comes because all these personal trainers, all these people out there are trying to make this is the perfect workout. Yeah, it's the perfect workout for someone who's trying to get maybe that extra 0.1%, which for most of us we will never ever need. We just want that kind of base level of fitness so we can do what we want to do. We don't need to or want to compete in the Olympics. So that's the first thing. So don't be put off by thinking you need to understand this inside out. You don't. At a very basic level, just move. Push, pull, jump. Simple as that. And then do more of it at a higher intensity. And if you've got to break down fitness, it's that. It's those three movements, and then you increase the intensity, increase the time you're doing it. That's simple. It's that simple for most of us. However, saying that, what we'll do now is we'll go into and actually break it down as to how I begin to train someone. So let's say I've just taken on a new client. Where do I start with 90% of people? Again, what we're looking at here is someone who's averagely fit, kite surfs a bit, maybe carrying a bit of extra weight, certainly not kind of an elite level athlete, so just a normal kind of, John Smith off the street type of person. So the first place I normally begin is range of motion. Or in other words, kind of, I don't want to call it flexibility, because as soon as you say flexibility, people think stretching. We're going to do some yoga, and I don't necessarily agree with static stretching as such. But range of motion is hugely important. Now, let me go into this a bit deeper. Yoga's great, and we all know yoga's sort of in vogue at the moment. It's very, very popular. The problem with just flexibility is that you see a lot of yogis, and they are so flexible. They spend so long doing yoga that like their elbows bend backwards or their knees bend back. They're hyper flexible. And the problem is the joints just aren't designed to cover that range of motion. So what they've got is range of motion and flexibility without strength. So what happens is if you put them in a sport like kite surfing, or something like rugby or something like this, big impact sports, they break very easily because their joints, as soon as they bend past where they're supposed to be and there's a pressure put on them, they just explode. So what we want is we want to have optimum range of motion with optimum strength throughout that range of motion. Now notice it didn't say maximal. We don't want maximal strength or maximal range of motion. Very, very important. We want what's optimal for the sport we're doing, which often in kitesurfing, you don't have to be super stretchy. A level of flexibility helps, especially for us gents who tend to have very tight posterior chains. So for a lot of us, just getting the damn board on our feet is a problem. So I would start with range of motion. It's the first place I start. Again, I've explained why I'm not a big fan of static stretching. So I tend to do stuff like dynamic stretching, fascia work, so stretching the fascia, pliability, where actually what we're trying to do is make the muscles softer and longer to make you much more injury proof. Now I've built an entire course on this, which if you're interested, again, is in the links below, which runs you through the exact exercise, the exact kind of workout that I do to build this part of the program. As I say, to me, it's the most important part, because once you've got that range of motion with the muscles that are long and soft and able to withstand an awful lot of impact or withstand injury, then when you build strength on top of it, when you build speed on top of it, when you build endurance on top of it, you've got a great framework to build on. And the idea I always use is a bicycle tire. Imagine a bicycle wheel, and the hub is dinted all over, so it's not circular. It's kind of this weird, semi-half oblong type shape, and you try and ride on that. It's a very, very bumpy ride, and that's what I think of doing strength training on a body that hasn't been optimized for range of motion, for flexibility, for balance, for things like this, because all you're doing is you're putting muscle on, but the muscle is going on in an unbalanced way, which makes you even more likely actually to get injured, because what you've got there is maybe let's say, for example, you've got a very, very tight, dense bicep, but the muscle up and downstream of it aren't, because you haven't got the balance right. So you've got one very, very strong muscle which is pulling these smaller muscles really, really tight, which means that there's no give in the system. There's no redundancy. So as soon as you take an impact or do a strange movement with those muscles, that strong muscle is so strong that it overpowers the other muscles, and one of them, often actually the strongest muscle, breaks, just explodes. So what's most physio's reaction to this? Oh, we need to rebuild that muscle stronger. So they go in and they say, okay, well, that's cool. We'll rebuild that bicep stronger, which actually adds to the strain on the system as a whole, makes it worse. So you have you're in this situation where you keep building this same muscle stronger and it just keeps getting injured over and over and over and over again. So what we need to do instead is lengthen out the whole system, rebalance the whole system, so that rather than that one muscle carrying all the strain, the whole system does. So when you take an impact, it's shared not just between the bicep, but the muscles upstream and downstream of the biceps as well. So this is why I start with range of motion. So we get that kind of inbuilt flexibility, that inbuilt resistance to injury, and that well-balanced framework that we can then build strength on top, okay? So that's where I'd normally start. And again, I put together a course on this. It's available in the description below. Head over there. I think it's €37. You can grab that. It runs through all the exercises that we do here, that I would run through with someone. It's a really, really good course, I have to say. It's really, really useful. So go and check that out if you're interested in that kind of thing. From there, where do we go? So we've got a decent range of motion. Then where do we go? Well, from there, I would look at starting building endurance and strength. Why? Because these two form the basis of everything else we're going to do. You want to build speed? The best way to build speed? Build strength. You want to build injury resistance? The best way to build injury resistance? Build strength. You want to build, massive amounts of endurance? Well, the best way to do that actually is to start with the basis of strength. So strength would be my next one, but I would mix this in with endurance work. Now, there's this big myth that's been propagated in the world, this difference between cardio and strength. Now, I don't tend to differentiate them that as much as has been done in the past. Why? Because when you're training strength, if you're training strength properly, you're also training cardio. It's slightly different if you're doing a marathon and things like this, but for what we're doing for kitesurfing, basically, we want to build workouts that work on them both at the same time, really. Much more efficient and much easier to do. So let's start with endurance. Now, this is kind of the key point of this whole presentation. In any workout, when you're ever building fitness for anything, there's what's called the 80-20 rule. Now, what it basically states is that you should do 80% of your training at a very low level. So you want to be doing a lot of very low intensity stuff. And when I say low intensity, I mean stuff you can perform at a conversational pace. So you can be doing it and having a conversation fairly easily at the same time. So it's quite a low level. So, it's not kind of jogging at high speed. It would be jogging very, very slow. Kitesurfing, easy day of kitesurfing is a great example because you could carry on a conversation throughout most of that. So kitesurfing is a great one for this. Long walk, not slow walks, but long walks up and down mountains, things like this. Light swimming, something like that. Bike riding, anything like that is great. And you want that to form the basis of your exercise program. Why? Because that's going to give you the movement. It's going to teach your body how to move properly. But it's also giving you this kind of low-level background fitness. It's just getting everything moving, getting the blood working, building health on the background. Then for the 20%, we want to go more high intensity. So go from 80% low intensity, 20% high intensity. When I say high intensity, I mean a workout where you can't really maintain a conversation. And this is how we do it. It's that simple. Then all you do from that, the 80% doesn't really change. You don't want to up the intensity there. You want to up the time. So if you're doing like an hour a day, go to an hour and a half, go to 2 hours, but don't increase the intensity. That needs to stay very low level. The 20%, which we're doing the high intensity stuff, you want to increase speed, weight, intensity, not so much time. So you're increasing the time of the endurance stuff, the low level stuff, and the 20% you're just increasing the intensity, increasing how much you sweat as you get better. So this should form the basis of any good exercise plan. So you can see actually it's quite simple. If you've got a standing desk, or even better, a walking desk at work, you can easily do this very, very easy. Your time at work can be the time you're moving, and then you spend 15 minutes 3 times a week in a gym doing very, very high intensity stuff. And that would actually be enough for most people. It's that simple. That would be a great exercise plan for 99% of people out there. Just that, and then but with the background, do the range of motion stuff that we talk about. For most people, that would be great. It's not kitesurf specific necessarily, but what it's doing is it's building up that general level of fitness, of strength, and I say, well, you said strength is the basis of speed. You're building endurance, and you would find that just doing that for a month, your kitesurfing went through the roof. However, there comes a point when some people say, well, okay, that's great. I've got my general strength and fitness. What I want to do now is build specific kitesurf fitness. Now, what is specific kitesurf? Well, I would say, kitesurfing is probably, again, we still don't know this, is probably somewhere a balance between endurance and power. So, okay, how do we build power? Well, speed and strength equals power. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we do our strength workouts, or we do a form of strength workout, but we up the speed, we up the explosiveness to build that power. So this is why I love resistance bands, because you can do workouts with resistance bands they're building strength, but they're also, they're very explosive, much more so than I find that you can do with dumbbells, because they reduce the risk of injury as well. You can do much more dynamic ways. We've talked about this in other videos. I'm not going to go into it again here. But this is the best way to then build speed. Start doing speed workouts. Very, very simple terms. Take the strength workout you were doing and do it faster. It's that simple. It's not complex stuff, and I think this is where people go wrong. It's not as complex as the fitness industry is made out. You would take the strength workout you do, and you'd lower the weight slightly. You would do slightly more reps at a much faster pace. That's it. So take the same strength workout, up the speed, up the reps, up the speed, done. And what that's doing is that's training your body for speed as well. So then with the baseline speed that we've got, with the baseline strength that you've built up, you add in speed, you are building power. So then you've got endurance, power, strength, injury resistance. You've got all the things we mentioned to start with. Now, how much specific training do you want to do? Well, it depends where you are in the season a little bit. But I normally go, if I'm doing 3 workouts a week, I would do 2 that were strength and 1 that was speed. Why? Again, because we've said the basis of speed, of power, of speed really is strength. So you build that general strength up in the background, add in a workout of speed. You are now specifically training for kitesurfing with the speed training, but also maintaining your level of strength in the background so that you don't lose that, and you don't go too far down the road to being too fast, which would give us muscles that we don't necessarily want. It would be too specific, okay? Because the foundation of everything is that basis of strength and endurance that we've got through the 80-20 principle. So keep with that. And literally, that is as complicated as I make it. I don't, unless I'm working with an elite kitesurfing professional, I don't make it any more complicated than that for most people, because it doesn't need to be. If that's all you were doing, and you did it consistently, you'd be great. You'd be probably 100% better than you are at the moment, 1,000% better than you are at the moment. With very little effort, you can see if you can build that movement in an easy way. That's the hard part that people struggle with, building that 80%, because it's time heavy. If you can build that in, and say the best way to do this is like a walk-in desk at work, it's great, because it means that you can be walking for 6-7 hours a day, and then hit the gym 3 times a week for your 15 minutes month. You are done. That would be perfect, absolutely perfect. Now you'd be killing it. You'd notice so many changes so quickly. So it doesn't need to be that complicated. Okay, so what as I said, remember the endurance part of it remains the same intensity. I don't care how fit you are. And this is something that was shown with a lot of Ethiopian runners. Why are they so good? Why are they so good compared to everyone else? And what they do, their training, they do their low-level stuff, they do a lot more, but they do it actually at a lower level of intensity than a lot of other athletes, which was a mind-blowing. People think, people have always said you need to do more exercise, you need to do more intense exercise. And what they found with these guys is that they spend 80% of the time doing very, very low-level stuff that you really probably wouldn't even consider exercise, most people. But they spend a long time doing it, as opposed to someone, someone from the UK or America or something like that who spends maybe an equal amount of time, but they do a higher intensity. Because this brings me to my final point, my next point, sorry, is that the real key to fitness is recovery. Why? Because the person who can work out and then recover and then do the same again tomorrow is going to be much, much better than the person who does a workout, takes 3 days to recover before they can do another workout. Just think about how much more training you are going to get in if you can train every day. And this brings me to another point where the idea of exercise is not to ache. Most people are only satisfied with their workout if they absolutely can barely get out of bed the next day. That's a sign that you've overdone it. That you're overcooking it. You should not ache. Yet when you first start a program, of course you will ache. Absolutely no doubt you will. But the idea of exercise is not to ache. The idea of exercise is to increase health. And if you're aching, you're doing too much. And there are specific times when you might want to do this, like if you are specifically overloading. But again, for most people, that's just not needed. So I would much prefer someone who does lower level stuff or stuff that they can quite easily do, but they do it every day, rather than someone who beasts it twice a week and then aches for 5 days afterwards. I just think it's a much more effective way of, not necessarily efficient, but much more effective way of doing it long term, again, for things like reducing injury. Having said that, there is some science coming out, and I've certainly done this with some clients, and it works like gangbusters, where you can work out for 15 hours a week. You go and do what's called the Big 5 workout. You can Google that on the internet. And you do the Big 5, you do it once a week, once every 10 days. And it does work. It really, really does. And it's this idea that the minimum effective dose of exercise is a lot less than we actually think. So for those of you who just don't have the time to do what we talked about before, go and check out the Big 5 workouts by a chap called Doug McGuff. You can read his book. It's called Body by Science. Absolutely fascinating book. It gives a totally new spin on exercise. And I say I've got some guys who are doing that and getting great results. And not just in kind of how, body composition, but in blood work, in all the other tests that we run with them. They're really, really improving. So that's another thing that you can look at, which kind of contradicts most of what I've just said, in fairness. So this is kind of where we go. Exercise science is still very much in its infancy, to be fair. Bizarrely, given all the research we've done on it, there's a lot of things now that are coming out contradictory to what we normally believe. But the majority of exercise scientists are in this 80-20 camp. You spend 80% of your time moving, low level intensity stuff, with 20% of your time doing high intensity workouts. And this is where I have a real problem with a lot of people just going to switch off at this point, but things like CrossFit. CrossFit once or twice a week is awesome. But what I see a lot of people doing with CrossFit is they try and go 5-6 times a week. And it's, basically, that's basically where it comes in. Well, doing something is more effective than nothing, of course, yeah. But what I'm trying to give you is this idea that I think a lot of people think, I'm just going for a walk, it's not exercise. I'm just going for, a really light swim. I'm just doing the housework, it's not exercise. Well, I would class that as exercise, as that movement, as that part of that forming that 80% that you can then build 20% on. This is what I'm trying to say with CrossFit, that most people think, CrossFit 5 times a week. 5 times a week is better than twice a week. It's not. 5 times a week is going to break your body down, and you're not going to, unless you are this elite athlete, which most of us aren't, it's going to break your body down faster than it can recover. So it's going to cause you big problems. So to wrap up in kind of the really simple kind of base of this is, okay, what we're trying to build, realistically at the base of this, we're trying to build strength and endurance. Strength and endurance, range of motion. First one, start with range of motion. Why? Because it puts your body in balance. So when we start to hang strength and endurance on that frame, it works, and it doesn't cause you injuries down the line. This is probably the biggest problem I see people making. I'm going to jump in, I'm going to start going to the gym and flinging weights around without having done any rebalancing work. And this is after maybe 40, 50 years of sitting in front of a computer. 30, 40, 50 years of sitting in front of a computer, not really doing much exercise, and just jump into a fitness program, just start kitesurfing, something like that, and haven't rebalanced the body. And inevitably, they then go on to suffer from injury after injury after injury. Especially as they start getting a bit older, and they just put it down to old age. Well, it's not. It's just you haven't rebalanced the body. So that's the first step, range of motion work. As I say, the link to the course that we do is down below if you want to go and check that out. And then from there, build speed and endurance at this 80-20 rate. Okay, so build it from there. 80% low level stuff, but for 80% of the time, 20% high intensity stuff. And you work that out as to how much time you can afford to dedicate. Just break down your week, right? How much time am I actually going to spend moving? And then how much time in comparison, what's 20% of that I can spend in high intensity stuff. Recover like a mad thing in between so that you can do it again and again and again. That's really the key. Don't overdo those high intensity ones. The idea isn't to ache for 3 days afterwards. You should be able to do 3 a week, 3, 4 a week, easily. After a month, the first month, no, it'll be hard. But after a month, you should be able to do 3 or 4 a week. High intensity, 15, 20 minutes is all it may be, but that should be fairly straightforward. Do it, you don't ache the next day, get up, it takes 1 day to recover, back on it again. And the great thing about this is, kite surfing fits into it perfectly, because kite surfing, as it stands normally for most people, you go out for 3 hours, you tend to spend 80% of your time just cruising up and down, 20% of your time pushing it, doing tricks, doing that more high intensity stuff. So this is why kite surfing is actually a great sport for this. The problem with kite surfing is it tends to lead to imbalances in the body, because you spend a lot of time kind of in this crouched forward position. So this is why you need the pliability, need the range of motion stuff to open up your body to rebalance it. Okay, so that's literally kind of how I build a program. Now, are there nuances to this? Of course there are. Of course there are. Do you need to change it for other people? Of course you do. But when you look at any workout and say, well, this is just, a lot of workouts only focus on that 20% point, because that's where the sexy stuff is. It's not sexy saying go and walk for 4 hours. Get into the mountains every weekend. Go light swimming every day, every morning. It's just not sexy, because anyone can do that. You don't need a special instruction to go and do that. But that's actually where one of the baseline lies, and then the 20% is the stuff you add on top of that. And by the way, where would I start with that? I would start with the endurance stuff. I would do range of motion first, spend people doing about a month on that before they even do anything else. Then, probably at the same time, building the endurance stuff, so have them walking, moving, loads in that same month. Then after a month, minimum, I would then add in the strength work, which is totally the opposite to what most people do. Most people start with strength, start flinging weights around, start hitting the treadmill at 15 miles an hour every day. To me, it's the wrong way around. That is just promoting injury, promoting imbalance, doing it the wrong way around. Build the foundations first, and the foundations movement and range of motion. Okay, so and on top of that, obviously recovery, and what we call active recovery, which is this idea of actively participating in your recovery. Very, very simple. A simple way of doing it: go and jump in spa, sauna, hot cold treatment, chill out in the jacuzzi. These cool things that we enjoy doing. Great, perfect excuse to go and do all that stuff. Okay, so I see what you're saying, Paul. It is a little bit like saying, just move, just do something. But what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of the opposite way around to what most people have been taught. It's not just a case of rocking up at the gym. Build the foundation first. Build that low level endurance first, because that's gonna teach your muscles how to move more than anything else. As much as it's the neuromusculature that we're trying to build. And this is why when you go and do a weights training program, you improve very, very quickly to start with. It's not that you're getting stronger, it's that you are training your muscles how to move properly. And you're building that neuromuscular connection, and that builds up very, very rapidly. So what we're doing in those first months is we're building form, we're giving you a better posture, we're giving you a better structure to your body. So when you do start lifting weights, you're doing it in balance. Okay, so that is enough for me waffling on this morning, guys. Thank you very much for being here. Hope you found that useful. Let's say if you do, if this is interesting to you, we do a free kite surfing specific workout. The link is in the notes below. Or also if you're interested in the flexibility of the stuff, the where I start with people, because this is very, very different. You probably won't see anything like this before. As I say, it's pliability, it's fascia work. The link to the course, again, is in the show notes below. I will speak to you at the same time next week. Have a great week, guys. I will see you very soon.